Nestled in the suburbs of West London are 320 acres containing one of the most amazing plant collections in the world. The Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew.
It's absolutely amazing how wonderful nature is.
From the historic glass houses...
Wow, what a nice view.
...to the ever-changing walks and vistas.
This is this tree's children.
We've been given special access to capture a year in the life of this unique place. With 17,000 species of plants to nurture.
You were like a kid in a candy store. Oh, look what I've got, look what I've got.
And 2 million visitors to enchant.
The greenhouse is actually quite cool.
The staff are busier than ever.
So we're almost near the end of loading the kiln.
Creating vibrant public displays.
It's addictive. And to work with just so many beautiful flowers.
And doing vital work behind the scenes.
This unit is a big drone. In here is a laser that spins around.
Throughout the months, and whatever the weather.
This is the cycle to have when you're having a bad day with the view of the palm house.
The gardens and the people who keep them alive never stay still. This is Kew, a year in bloom. Spring is now rushing headlong into summer, and greenery and colour are exploding all across the gardens. It's all thanks to Kew's 150-strong horticultural team, whose hard work over the winter months is paying off.
So the cage is to give these some support as they grow.
We are changing the display in it, which is something we do every week.
Plants are also bursting into life inside Kew's many glasshouses. From the tallest, the 19-metre-high temperate house, to the tropical nursery, where over 10,000 different plants are nurtured behind the scenes. But today, it's one of the smallest glasshouses that contains one of the biggest attractions, the giant water lilies.
It's very tropical in there, so you feel it as soon as you walk in. But the colours, you almost think they're plastic, but they're not.
You're in an environment, it feels like you're walking around Bangkok or Jakarta or somewhere. But they're looking absolutely beautiful.
We were trying to estimate the size, and I'm sure it's over 6 foot.
The water lily house has been wowing visitors since 1852. Kew was the first place in the world to successfully grow giant water lilies from seed. And to this day, they're still pushing scientific boundaries. In the Princess of Wales Conservatory, they're also growing the 2 species of giant water lilies, Victoria cruziana and Victoria amazonica. But this year, botanical artist Lucy and scientific and botanical research horticulturalist Carlos have an exciting new discovery. A 3rd species of giant water lily that may be brand new to science.
So what we have over on the left is Victoria amazonica, and right here next to me is Victoria cruziana, and then here.
Yeah, we have a new species of Victoria. This one comes from a region of North Bolivia. It has differences in every single part.
And to begin with, we thought it was most similar to cruziana, and it's really good to see the leaves of Victoria cruziana and the new one side by side.
It was in 2006 that Carlos first saw images of some intriguing-looking giant water lilies. Years later, he went to Bolivia on a research trip and went to find these unusual-looking plants for himself.
I had the feeling that this was something new that wasn't that consistent. The seed was when it just went to me like a slap, like this has to be something different, yes or yes.
We just instantly knew that it was so unusual.
Unusual, yeah.
Carlos worked for years with his Bolivian partners, getting permission to send seeds to Kew to cultivate. In 2016, they arrived.
And I remember going in the office of the boss saying like, look, look, look.
Meanwhile, in the herbarium, Lucy also spotted evidence there might be a third species, whilst working on some scientific drawings of the giant water lilies. So she and Carlos decided to investigate together. The herbarium is Kew's collection of scientific dried plant specimens. With over 7 million such specimens collected over 170 years, it was the perfect place for them to see if this unusual-looking water lily had popped up before.
One of the really important things that you can do with a herbarium specimen is you can get up really close to the plant, so you can measure lots of the tiny internal parts of the flower.
Amongst the pages was a specimen collected in 1845 that seemed to have been mislabeled as Amazonica, whilst actually it may be a much earlier example of this giant water lily.
So we've actually counted all the prickles and discovered that a really good way of telling the difference between the species is where the prickles are and how many they are, what size they are, what length they are, and even how they're distributed. So the herbarium specimens have been fantastic for that.
All this evidence points to a giant water lily with enough differences to qualify as its own species. And in honour of where it was found, it was named Victoria boliviana. But to have that name officially recognised, they'll need to call in Kew's scientists to have a look at its DNA. Further into the gardens, there are more giant plants to be found in the palm house. Heated up to 28 degrees Celsius with 75% humidity, it houses jungle trees and palms that need to be kept in line by a specialist team.
It's wobbly.
Yeah, it will wobble a bit.
Even if some of them aren't too keen on heights.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Here we go.
Today's student Florence is getting a lesson in high-altitude pruning by supervisor Will.
Right, so you've got the saw.
Yeah, I've got it here. So which one are we taking?
So we'll take that one.
Yeah.
With the palm house busy with visitors, the pruning is becoming something of a spectator sport.
Yeah.
But Florence seems unfazed and remembers her training.
If you look at this tree, it's quite vigorous. There's a lot of stem, so we're able to take some nice chunk out of it. So that's the understanding what to prune, where to cut.
Wisely, they've closed off the section below to protect inquisitive onlookers.
Okay, so that can be dropped down onto the pathway. If you saw that bit off there. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice finish. So that will leave there, and then that will sort of bud up from that position. Once we get a new leaf there, it will look quite nice.
Yeah. Wow, what a nice view.
Yeah. No, it's not often you can see right down into it.
With only 2 permanent staff members in the palm house, Will relies on trainees like Florence. So, how has she done today?
Her first experience up there, and particularly for overcoming a slight fear of height, she did really well. The pruning was great. I hope she enjoyed it.
That variety of plants in the middle of London. You feel like you're in a different country. That's how I felt sometimes. Like, oh, I'm in Peru now. I'm in South America now. That's what makes it actually fantastic.
Come back as Carlos calls in the scientists to test his water lily.
So if we find that this undiscovered species has a different chromosome number, then this might be a new species to science.
We meet the team trying to save our favourite beverage.
Our mission is to find new coffee species that will be able to withstand increased temperatures and less predictable rainfall.
And find out about the rhododendron attempting a hostile takeover.
Even though it looks appealing when it's in flower, actually it just creates a desert where nothing else can really grow.
Under the warming skies in Kew Gardens, the signs of the gradually changing seasons are everywhere, nurtured by the 150-strong staff. But in the Davies Alpine House, Steph is giving the plants on display a more sudden change, with some horticultural sleight of hand.
What we do in the Alpine and Rock Garden is do this technique called plunging, which is when we have a sand bed and we scoop out a pot size, and we do it because it makes the plants look like they've been in there for a long time and keep the roots at like a healthy temperature for them to survive either in the strong heat.
In a part of the gardens the public never normally gets to see, Carlos is in the tropical nursery, growing what he hopes is a brand new species of water lily. And from the look of the seeds, he could be onto something.
So this is Amazonica, which, as you can see, it has an ellipsoidal shape, so it's not perfectly round. Then this was Cruciana, which is the other species we used to grow, which, as you can see, is perfectly round. And now we have this new plant, which, as you can see, is much bigger than the other two.
To get his research published, Carlos will need more evidence. So he's called in Kew's scientific big guns.
Yeah. So is that Amazonica?
This one is Amazonica, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I want that one.
Yeah.
Research scientists Sahar and Natalia are here for samples to take to the labs, in the hope they can come up with definitive proof.
So from the two species that we know are definitive species, one of them has a chromosome count of 20 and one of them has a chromosome count of 24. I'll just take this one. So if we perhaps find that this undiscovered species has a chromosome count of 22 or a different chromosome number, then it's also a clue as to this might be a new species to science.
It can be half of a leaf.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Back in her lab, Sahar's chromosome analysis reveals some differences to the known Victoria species. But it's not enough proof on its own. Carlos and Lucy will need the results from Natalia's DNA analysis. All they can do now is wait. Sat in the centre of the gardens, the Palm House may be smaller than the nearby Temperate House, but for most visitors, it's the most iconic symbol of Kew. Constructed like an inverted ship's hull from 16,000 glass panels, it was opened in 1848 to house tropical plants brought back by Victorian botanists.
And it's just amazing, like you're here in London and you're seeing these things from the tropics.
Few plants that from Asia, so it's bring back memory to see the plant that can grow in here.
Nowadays, as well as a visitor attraction, it also serves as a living laboratory for Kew scientists, allowing them to study plants that would normally be found halfway across the world. Scientists like Dr. Aaron Davies, who's studying a tropical fruit many of us depend on every day.
Beside me is Arabica coffee. Now, Arabica coffee provides us with around 60–65% of the coffee that's consumed globally. And it really is the king of coffee because it has a superior flavour. If we want really good coffee, this is the species we use.
As well as Arabica beans for our posh coffee, the other main coffee species is Robusta, which is used for instant coffee. But climate change across the coffee-growing regions has put both of these beans at threat of extinction.
So our mission is to find new coffee species that will be able to withstand increased temperatures and less predictable rainfall.
Aaron's work for Kew has taken him across the world, and he's convinced that the solution lies with a little-known African species called Liberica. Originating in Liberia, it probably supplies less than 1% of the world's coffee, but Aaron found it being farmed in Uganda, where the locals love Liberica's resistance to disease and drought.
We first visited these farmers in 2016. It was quite interesting to see that they were growing Liberica coffee. Now we're some ways into a 3-year project, and we are investigating numerous aspects of this coffee, including flavour, but also its climate resiliency.
Aaron will be returning to Uganda soon to continue his work. But this isn't the first time that Kew has proposed Liberica as the saviour of coffee. In Kew's archives, horticultural historian Advoli Richmond has been researching a Victorian coffee disease with parallels to today.
Around 1869, there was this problem with coffee, and this was the coffee leaf rust, the Hemilevus datrix.
Outbreaks of the disease destroyed the coffee industry in places like Sri Lanka. Kew thought the Liberian coffee variety may help, and so reached out to Thomas Birch Freeman, a remarkable man who became Kew's first plant collector of colour.
Thomas Birch Freeman was born in 1809 in Twyford, Hampshire, and he was probably the son of a freed slave. He then surfaces in 1833, and he's about 24 years old. And he is a head gardener and botanist at Orwell Park in Ipswich for Lord and Lady Harland. And he's obviously a very well-respected plantsman because he's judging shows at the Ipswich Horticultural Society. So the fact that this young man was in such a trusted position is really quite incredible.
Despite his early success, by the 1870s Freeman had left behind Suffolk to become a missionary in what is now Ghana. It was here that Sir Joseph Hooker, Kew's director, asked him to source Liberican coffee beans.
As we can see here in the inward bound volume, we have a record. And here you can see from T.B. Freeman Esquire, Beulah Gardens, Accra, Gold Coast, 480 seeds of Liberian coffee. And here, how exciting is this? We have the leftovers of the 480 coffee beans. Aren't they wonderful?
Liberica beans went on to help save the coffee industry in places like Indonesia before falling back to obscurity. But 150 years later, Aaron's work means it could once more save the UK's favourite beverage. South of London, in the rolling Sussex countryside, is Kew's sister side, Wakehurst, home of the Millennium Seed Bank and over 500 acres of wild botanic gardens. Today, Russell, Arboretum manager, is getting the tree gang ready to take on a bully.
We're just going to start clearing the rhododendron, so we're just going to make the effort to clear the side on the rock face first. And then there's a tiny patch over here which I can show you which needs to be cleared, which is definitely Ponticum.
Ponticum is an aggressive, non-native rhododendron that became popular in Britain as a pot plant in the 1890s. But it will outcompete all other plant life if allowed to, decimating habitats.
Have a good day, see you later. I'll leave you to the midges and the precipice.
Ponticum is a particular threat to Wakehurst as it harbours diseases which threaten sweet chestnuts and American oaks.
It does harm to the ecology and the environment that it's in, so there's no real other choice. Even though you could argue that it looks appealing when it's in flower, actually it just creates like a monoculture and a desert where nothing else can really grow.
Wakehurst is situated on land that drops off by 70 metres, and rhododendrons seem to love growing in awkward places. John's on abseiling duty to take out this one. whilst James and Katie dispose of the evidence.
Cut it and I can put it through Tripper if you want.
Yeah.
Ponticum even poisons sheep and cattle, and Snowdonia National Park are spending millions of pounds removing it. But it's difficult to eradicate every part of it.
The stump's going to stay there. We can't really dig it out because of where it is and because it would damage the rocks. So we'll just keep on top of it. It's so invasive, it just keeps coming back.
And you come back as Katie and the gang's ongoing rhododendron battle hits the rocks.
There's a lot of different gradients, a lot of challenges that can get in the way.
The hunt continues in Africa for a new improved coffee bean.
So we want to have more flowers for the next season.
And the water lily house is prepared for a new star attraction.
Just find a plant and figure out where it goes, that's it.
At Wakehurst, Hugh's Wild Botanic Garden in West Sussex, Katie and the tree gang are dealing with multiple outbreaks of rhododendron ponticum that is threatening other plants in the collection.
John's all done here, but we're going to go to the other site.
Elsewhere in the gardens, other species of rhododendrons are much more welcome. Wakehurst has one of the world's finest collections of rhododendrons, and botanist Olivia is in charge of it.
So we've got about 1,800 plants, and that covers about 300 species of rhododendron. So it's really diverse, and they come from all over the world. And we've got a number of rare and threatened plants in the collection. So it's very important for us to conserve and protect our collections here.
There are 900 rhododendron species, and Wakehurst has about a third of them. Despite their ubiquity in British gardens, these plants hail from Asia, and many were brought to Kew by Sir Joseph Hooker in the 1840s.
So the temperate rhododendrons, they come largely from the Himalayas. So they come from relatively high altitude where it's cool and moist. So the conditions we have here at Wakehurst are fantastic. We've got these steep slopes which creates high humidity, and they also like acidic soil as well.
Unfortunately, these perfect conditions continue to give the tree gang a bit of a headache with the aggressive ponticum.
So we've set 2 lines up, one in the oak and one in the birch. I'm just going to have to traverse into the position.
Wakehurst's tricky terrain means Katie, James and John not only need to be able to handle climbing trees, but plenty of rocks as well.
Fairly okay, different to being in a tree.
James is on abseiling duty this time.
There's a lot of different gradients, there's rabbit holes everywhere, there's sandstone rocks, there's a lot of challenges that can get in the way.
No matter the terrain, this ponticum is no match for the tree gang, and the end is soon in sight.
So he's finished the aerial aspects. We've just got some bits growing out the base, but we can reach that from the ground. It's always going to be something we just need to manage and keep on top of. I think we work well as a team, so we get it done.
Back in Kew Gardens, the visitor numbers continue to rise, and so do the plants in the glasshouses. There is one glasshouse that starts from scratch each and every year, the water lily house. Last time, Solène created a vibrant summer display with Victoria cruziana as the centrepiece, and every year they aim for a record breaker.
They're almost 160. I think the record is 2 meter 40.
This year, Solène is on maternity leave, and so Bree has been given the job of designing and planting the display. And the centrepiece this time will be the newly identified water lily species, Victoria boliviana.
So this is a rough approximation of where I've put all of the pots. The large Victoria is just going to be one plant in that whole pot. So we want to have different colours dotted all the way around the pond to give that tropical, almost like being in a pick and mix sweet shop kind of idea, all the clashing colours. We don't want all of the blues on one side and all the yellows on the other. We want to really make everything stand out for what it's worth. That's the plan anyway.
All Bree needs now is some water lilies. Luckily, in the tropical nursery, Carlos has been tending to a batch of babies growing fresh this year, ready for her display.
Hey!
Hey!
Hey, which one's this?
This one is green smoke.
Oh, yeah. They're beautiful.
They smell amazing.
Water lilies of all shapes and sizes will feature in the display, but it's all about that centerpiece star, Victoria Boliviana.
Is this the new one?
Yeah.
It's amazing how smooth they are. They're not that smooth when they get older.
No, especially underside, isn't it?
They get very, very bumpy.
Victoria Amazonica lily pads have been known to grow well over 2 meters in diameter, but this potential new species is an unknown quantity.
How big is he going to get, do you think?
I expect it to be at least 2.60, so that's the challenge.
Do you want to put a bet on now?
Yeah.
If we beat 260, then you owe me a drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
A fizzy one.
Yeah, definitely. Prosecco.
Getting the young specimens into position needs to happen quickly. They are delicate at this stage and dry out fast. Luckily, some high-speed transport awaits.
Just find a plant and figure out where it goes. That's it. So yeah, today we've got Florence and Chris helping. It's really nice to share this part of the horticulture with them because not many people will be able to have the opportunity to plant water lilies, and it's just a really nice opportunity to kind of share that information and knowledge.
This may look like a big pot for a small plant, but many giant water lily pads will grow to about the size of the pot that they're planted in.
So this huge pot in the middle is where we'll put the Victoria. You can see him here. And it's just one plant in this whole pot. So I think he's looking really comfortable in there.
But this is going to be a beast. I am sure of that. It's going to be probably the biggest one we have grown in the water lily house, at least.
In their new habitat, some of these plants will grow at astonishing speeds, up to 50 centimeters per day. Bree may not have long to wait before she knows whether she's getting Prosecco or Tizer.
Well, thank you, Carlos.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hope you're a happy customer.
Very happy.
And if you're not happy with your water lilies, we get you the money back.
Whilst Victoria Boliviana takes centre stage, it's still not officially classified as a new species yet. Carlos and Lucy have been nervously awaiting the results of DNA tests being carried out by Natalia. Finally, results are in, and it's looking good.
We are able to now identify a third species of giant water lily because we have diagnostic genetic characters that are unique to each of the 3 species.
This final piece of evidence means they can submit their paper claiming Boliviana as a distinct new species of giant water lily. For Lucy and Carlos, today is the culmination of many years of work, but submitting a paper is no guarantee that it will be published.
But tomorrow is the absolute deadline, and once it's submitted, it then has to go to review. And they'll come back with their comments. They may reject it outright. That's not, please don't let that happen. They may reject it outright, or they may have very many valid comments to make.
So it really feels like a never-ending study, isn't it?
Lucy and Carlos can do no more. Today is the beginning of an anxious wait. A long way from Kew, Aaron has been filming a trip to Uganda, where he has been working with local partners like coffee specialist Dr. Catherine Kiwuka. They are looking for new coffee species, as the coffee beans that we rely on, Arabica and Robusta, are threatened by climate change. And he believes they have a candidate, Liberica.
What we're doing with our collaborators and partners in Uganda is to run a series of field trials across Uganda in different environments to see how it might behave during periods of low rainfall or high temperatures.
Ensuring the coffee grows well is one thing, but Aaron also needs to make sure that it will actually sell. So he's travelled to Uganda with a coffee importer and roaster from the UK, Josh, from Clifton Coffee.
We deal with 16 different producers quite closely around the world, and we've seen the impacts in Central America. El Salvador particularly, so I've suffered with coffee leaf rust for the last 10 years almost now. In Ethiopia, we've seen less rain. In Brazil, we've seen extreme frost. So yeah, we've really seen people have to deal with a wider range of problems than we've sort of been used to over the last 30 years in coffee anyway.
Coffee is Uganda's second largest export, earning the producers over $75 million a month. So as well as our morning cappuccino, many livelihoods are on the line.
So we want to have more flowers for the next season. And we want to apply more fertilizers here.
The hardy Liberica may be the answer to everyone's prayers, but only if people will actually like the taste. And that's where Josh's expertise comes in.
We're just back from Uganda, came back last week, so we'll be going down to Clifton Coffee over in Bristol in a few weeks to really do a proper evaluation on the flavour and understand where it sits in the coffee market.
The future of thousands of farmers in Africa and the taste of the coffee we'll be drinking for decades to come could all rest on what Josh's taste buds tell him. Come back to see the giant water lilies live up to their name.
Oh my God, they've taken over. They really are monsters.
Find out if Aaron's coffee bean is ready to take on the world.
That would definitely go under the radar, I think.
And see how Q is trying to change an entire industry.
When I told people that I'm going to transition into horticulture, I had people saying to me, "You're mad."
I know a bank where on the wild thyme blows, where oxlips and the nodding violet grows. Shakespeare may as well have been describing the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew in early summer, as life and colour bursts upwards and outwards. In the giant water lily house, it's 6 weeks since they planted Victoria boliviana, the suspected new species, and in that short time, they've had a bit of a growth spurt.
It's shocking. It's really quite amazing. I've just been off for 2 weeks on a course, and coming back was just like, oh my God, they've taken over. They really are monsters.
Size is everything with giant water lilies, and Bree has got a little wager with Carlos.
I think the bet was that we'd get 2 meters 60 as a leaf diameter, and if I could get that, then Carlos would buy me a bottle of Prosecco. So we're looking for 260. 266! So that's a bottle of Prosecco for me!
With weeks of growing still to go, this is already one of the hugest water lilies they've ever grown. And it's already getting a lot of attention.
Members of the public have been really kind of overwhelmed by the size of it. I've had somebody come up to me and like, oh my God, what are you doing? You know, it's so much bigger than it's ever been before. I've been coming here for 30 years and it's never looked like this. You know, what's your secret? And it's like, can't tell you yet.
That's because the discovery of Victoria boliviana as a new species has been secret until now. Lucy and Carlos have just heard their scientific paper has finally been accepted for publication.
Wow, they've really grown, haven't they?
This means the world will soon know about their discovery, and to celebrate, they've come to see Boliviana in all its glory.
I mean, they've only been in here, what, a month? 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
Today, I feel so many emotions. I feel happy, I feel a sense of achievement, I feel excited, and yeah, proud that I've achieved what I have, but that we as a team have achieved what we've had. Do you feel a sense of satisfaction?
Yeah, I mean, I also feel a bit knackered.
Yeah, same.
For Carlos in particular, a lifetime's obsession with these plants has produced a remarkable outcome.
Since I was a kid, I was always obsessed with Victoria. So for me, this is an amazing personal achievement. I think it's a truly historical moment, and any water lily geek or water lily lover will agree with me on this one.
With their extraordinary journey at an end, Lucy and Carlos have one last thing to resolve.
I've just got one question. Is it going to be Boliviana or Boliviana?
Well, if you ask me, I am Spanish, so it has to be Boliviana.
I think the Aussie in me says Boliviana.
Boliviana.
I'll try and say Boliviana. Sounds a bit more proper, doesn't it?
It's over a month since Aaron returned from Uganda with samples of Liberica excelsa, a hardy coffee that in the future could withstand the excesses of climate change. Today, he's brought the beans to Josh at Clifton Coffee in Bristol to answer the ultimate question: do they taste any good?
This is a deal breaker, really, because if the coffee doesn't taste good or doesn't have a commercial viability, then the project's going nowhere. The coffee has to taste good. It has to appeal to the mass market.
The coffees Josh and Aaron will be tasting or cupping are all Liberica beans.
So I'm just putting 12 grams into each bowl.
But they have been harvested at different times and roasted for different durations.
So we're about to pour water on them, let them brew for the same amount of time, and then we'll be ready to taste.
So can I take one of those cups?
Yes. Yep. Ready for you?
They're looking for the perfect blend of roast and beans to see if they can measure up to Arabica, the world's favourite coffee bean. After 5 minutes of frantic slurping, the jury is ready to return its verdict.
So if you were to, I think, score these, because of the fruit and aromas, this would score the highest. I think in terms of clarity and cleanliness, this would score most like an Arabica.
Yeah.
This with a couple of points less, and then maybe this a couple of points less again.
Do you think if you put that on a large blind cupping table, people would mistake it for Arabica?
That would definitely go under the radar, I think.
After years of painstaking crop research and development and finding the perfect roast for Liberica excelsa, Aaron and Josh have a climate change resistant coffee bean that tastes as good as Arabica.
So if all goes well, it'll be in the shops in limited quantities this year, but hopefully in the next 3-4 years we'll see it more widely available.
The next steps in this process are really exciting. It's uncharted territory. It's going to bring a third dimension to this pool of coffee. And I think the possibilities on a specialty and commodity scale are endless, really.
Back in the gardens is just another sunny day, with most people unaware of the breakthroughs that go on behind the scenes. 90,000 children come to Kew annually on school trips. This group are taking a break from learning with a visit to the treetop walkway.
The greenhouse! The greenhouse is actually quite tall. I didn't expect that. Because this view is amazing.
Also continuing her education is Florence, learning on the job in the Palm House.
First thing in the morning, water round. And after I've done that, I need to check the soil to make sure that there's no dryness, because we have to make sure that these plants are actually kept moist.
Florence is part of a new course that is looking to the future of horticulture. 150 years after T.B. Freeman was Kew's first plant collector of colour, people from ethnic minority backgrounds are still severely underrepresented in the horticulture industry.
So the Introduction to Horticulture course is a new thing for Kew, and it's specifically designed to provide people from diverse backgrounds to find a way into the profession of horticulture, because we found that we simply were not getting applications from minority ethnicities particularly.
There are 4 people on this initial one-year course, all being paid a full-time wage. Florence had a career working in teaching, and horticulture was only a hobby before she joined the course.
My background is Nigerian and Ivory Coast. In my family, when I told people that I'm going to transition into horticulture, I had people saying to me, "You're mad." Because when you're from African community, the expectation is like, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a this. So there's this 2 sides to that argument. Either the horticulture industry are not doing enough to attract ethnic minority into the industry. On the other hand, you're coming from a community where your own people don't actually see that as a successful career.
Đầu lòng buồn nước mắt vẫn cứ tuôn, thôi thì đành không muốn cũng phải buông. Bên người mới liệu có còn phiền muộn, đang rất vui hay là đang rất buồn. Nỗi nhớ cứ đến mùa vây, sao phải xa duyên tình kiếm này. Tịch tình tan, gió bay ngang trời giọt lệ đầy trang. Tình đơn phương vẫn thường mộng mơ, mơ thấy sao duyên tình chúng mình gần nhau thôi, cớ sao ông trời đành lòng rẽ đôi. Tình đã xa chỉ còn hoài mong, nghe xót xa tim mình thất lại, phải chăng khi đó ta.
Steph is also on the course after deciding to make a similarly seismic career shift.
I was a designer at a branding consultancy, and one day I saw an advert saying, "Are you a person of colour? Do you like gardening?" And I thought, yes. And then I applied, and here I am.
Kew is looking at how they can expand the course in the future. But for Steph, it's opened a world of possibilities.
Horticulture for me has been so enriching in ways I didn't imagine. Growing up, I never saw a Chinese person on TV, but definitely not gardening. And so it feels even more meaningful to be here, showing other people like me that you can do something different, learn something incredible that's important for the future of our planet, and have a place in this space.
Next time, some unusual visitors arrive in the gardens.
I like the fingernails. They are quite terrifying.
Discover the deadliest part of the plant collection.
The leaf snaps shut and it traps the flying insect usually inside.
And meet the family who get to call Kew home.
This is the best back garden a kid could have.